It began on a clear, quiet morning, March 3rd, 1,876 inches, the small Kentucky community of Olympia Springs. The air was crisp, the sky a pale blue, and Mrs. Ellen Crouch was standing in her yard, scrubbing laundry in a wooden tub. Nothing unusual, just another day on the farm. Then came the first splat. Mrs. Crouch paused. A wet sound, like someone had thrown a piece of raw meat onto the ground. Then another, and another. Within moments, the sky seemed to open up and unleash a storm of flesh. Chunks of red, slippery meat began falling in every direction, covering the fence posts, the grass, and Mrs. Crouch's freshly washed clothes. Some pieces were small and delicate, no bigger than snowflakes. Others were thick, heavy, and landed with an awful thud. For several minutes, it rained meat. When it finally stopped, silence returned. Mrs. Crouch stood motionless, staring at her yard now littered with what looked disturbingly like animal flesh. The farm smelled of iron and salt. She was convinced this was a divine warning. Her husband, Alan, when called outside, could only gape at the sight. Word spread fast. By midday, neighbors had begun arriving, curious and skeptical. Some refused to believe it until they saw the chunks themselves, glistening in the sunlight. The Crouches, overwhelmed and embarrassed by the attention, insisted the event had happened exactly as they said. And then came the moment that would forever brand the story in history books. Someone decided to taste it. A man named Leopold Brandeis, described in local accounts as brave, foolish, or very hungry, picked up a dried piece of the mysterious meat and chewed. Others followed, because apparently the 19th century was a time before basic caution existed. The verdict was mixed. Some said it tasted like mutton. Others swore it was venison. A few thought it might be bear meat. None were entirely sure, only that it was meat, or something very much like it. Soon after, samples were sent to laboratories and universities across the country. Professors and doctors in Kentucky, Ohio, and New York examined the flesh under microscopes, each offering their own bizarre theory. One scientist declared it was lung tissue from a horse or human infant. Another claimed it was muscular tissue, possibly beef or deer. Yet another thought it was cartilage or the fatty portion of some animal's organs. No one could agree on what it was, how it fell, or the real question, why. Newspapers across America devoured the story. "It rained meat in Kentucky," screamed headlines from coast to coast. Some journalists treated it as a curiosity, others as a miracle. Cartoonists drew skies filled with steaks, while preachers used it as a metaphor for divine punishment. And then came the theory that stuck, both ridiculous and oddly plausible. A scientist named Dr. L.D. Kastenbein suggested that the meat was not from heaven, nor from an explosion, but from vultures. He theorized that a flock of vultures flying overhead had recently gorged themselves on dead animals, and perhaps startled mid-flight vomited in mass. The explanation was grotesque, but neat. Vultures, after all, were known for projectile vomiting as a defense mechanism. And if enough of them did it at once, the resulting mess might very well look like a meat shower. The people of Bath County didn't like that answer. Who wants to believe they were baptized in regurgitated buzzard stew? But science didn't offer anything better, and the newspapers eventually moved on to other, less meaty mysteries. As for Mrs. Crouch, she reportedly refused to hang her laundry outside for months afterward. The memory of that day, the sky dark with falling flesh, stayed with her for the rest of her life. Even now, nearly 150 years later, the Kentucky meat shower remains one of the strangest meteorological events in American history. No one ever proved beyond all doubt what really happened. The samples, long dried and decayed, never offered definitive evidence. So history is left with the image: a quiet morning, a startled woman, and a sky that rained meat.